theme, premise, story, and plot. These are like the key elements of writing a screenplay, the breaking down of the essence of it. And of course, as I say here, the most important is the great characters. And you can build all of these things with great characters because their circumstances, their backstories, their life, future, past, and present can build out every single thing one needs to build in a screen story. But as it says here, when you pick an area that your story is in, you can then build from the ground up. We're going to look at today, on some of the films I'm going to show you, the great start of a film that was very successful. One's a family movie with an ensemble cast that lays out every single character, their circumstances, and the plot, and the story in the very first 15 minutes. We're going to show this film. So we'll talk about that film. The film is called Little Miss Sunshine. Anybody ever see this film? Okay, we're going to show it to you today, a little bit of it. It's very interesting. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the topic for the day, which is atmosphere, theme, story, premise, and something I call the spine of your movie. Okay, these are very important things. This idea of atmosphere is somewhat abstract, but it comes from imagining characters, creating relationships between them, and then trying to find the most important point between them. In other terms, the moment of crisis, the moment of conflict. We talked about conflict yesterday, man versus society, man versus nature, and man versus self. These are interesting places to talk about conflict, but when you think about your atmosphere in terms of what's the way you sit down and start writing a screenplay, the theme of your film has to be very clear. So in finding the theme, it is important to try and determine as early as possible what the central idea is being expressed through the story you like to tell. The reason why it is important to know, because all ideas that you have towards the writing and directing of this film comes from this unifying principle. Now, we can think about stories in a very abstract way, but no one does that. No one thinks about a story in abstract. You sit down, you say to yourself, I want to tell a story. I have an idea. But then you think about, why am I telling this story? Who is this story for? If there are a few cinematographers in this room, and I know there are, if there are some photographers in this room, because I know there are, many times you will try to make a movie because you want to take beautiful pictures, beautiful cinematography, beautiful imagery. You may be thinking that that film you're making is for yourself because you want to express yourself and communicate this through these images. But many times when you think about this way, you're thinking, this is for me. I don't really think about story. I'm thinking about me. I think about this image of a person walking, and there's the sun, and there's the mountains. All this is what I'm thinking. These are images, but they're not story. How can you translate what this film is about and who is this for to making a decision about the audience? And the audience, to me, is really kind of the most important thing I think about before I sit down and write a movie. Is my audience my friends? Are they my friends? Is that my audience? Everyone in this room, is that my audience? Or is my audience the people on the set making the movie? Or is the audience the general public? If your audience is the general public, which we all know it is because you're a filmmaker, that can be very intimidating as a filmmaker. You're sitting there thinking, I'm writing a movie, I'm looking for beautiful images, I'm trying to come up with a theme and a plot and a story, in characters that will blow people away for the general audience. That would be very intimidating. I would be intimidated. So what I do to calm myself as a writer, I put the people who I want this film to be for in perspective. I say, this film is for my friends. My friends want to see my next film. My friends represent the general audience. My friends will say, that's pretty good, that's pretty bad. But it keeps in my head, as a writer, a perspective that is actually generally obtainable for me. I can say to my friends at dinner, my friends at the supermarket, my friends at school, my friends and families, I've just made a film that you will like. It's just a point of view. It's a way to calm yourself. It's a way to make sure that you can put every day your fingers on the keys, your fingers on your pen to paper. It's like a daily ritual. It's something I think about. And also it keeps you from thinking so much about that these images you're creating are so lovely. It keeps you thinking about story. Story I want to tell my friends. There's a film that was made a few years ago called 3 Days of the Condor. I'm not sure if anybody saw it. But it was about a man who works for the government in America, and he reads books for a living. He reads, so all he does, he reads. And one day, he goes to work, and everyone in his office is killed about something he read in a book, a report he wrote. He trusts who he worked for. He trusts everyone he worked with. They're all dead. So he leaves. They're coming after him next. The movie becomes now a chase movie. He has to stay alive. How will he stay alive when the people he worked for, who he trusts, now want to kill him? He meets a woman in the street, hijacks her car at gunpoint. He finds a gun. The guy's he reads books. How he gets a gun, who knows, right? Now he has a gun. Tells the woman, let me in the car. I'm on the run. She trusts no one. Her whole life was about trusting no one. Her whole persona is about never, ever, ever trusting someone, particularly someone coming at you like that. So she said, get out. The gun, she hates him. They become tied by the hip for 3 days while he's on the run. He winds up going and living with her in her house with a gun on, and finally, he unshackles her. They become lovers. She saves him. All this is about, it's a chase movie, it's a spy movie. The story is what it is. But the theme of this film, the spine of the film, which I'll explain, is about trust. It's about this word trust. It's like one word. And we talked about it yesterday. Theme could be one word, trust. He trusts everybody. Everybody. She trusts no one. So the question, the conflict, the change, the drama is, will she trust him? Will she trust him? And the film becomes an incredible ride. And it's quite interesting, and it's well acted, and it got all kinds of awards. But the theme of trust, it just completely is invisible in the story. A film like A Straight Outta Compton, we just saw a bit of it yesterday. The theme is respect. The respect for people as human beings being equal. The artists, rappers want respect and make music about it, and cops don't care what they want. They only wish to repress and never see them as equals. Respect. You can relay your theme through film techniques. Choice of shots, actions taken or words said. The theme usually is one phrase, I think. Like I say, respect, trust, possession, revolt. I'm going to introduce another term that can be used to help you understand how to find both the atmosphere and the theme for the film you have in your head. The term is known as the spine. The spine we have in our bodies, our spine, our backbone. The spine, like your back, you have a spine that has bones and ligaments coming off of it. Like a sculpture, you cover it with clay and it takes space for the spine, but the spine holds everything together. The spine or theme or unifying idea of the story works off the spine. Without it, everything would collapse. But the spine must not be visible to the viewers or will ruin everything in the sculpture. Same thing in a movie. If someone walks straight out of Compton and said the film was about respect, I believe the filmmakers didn't do their job. I believe the filmmakers failed. You walked out of that movie and you thought, this film's about respect. No, it wasn't. About a group of people who decided to make music and they became successful against all odds. The spine, the theme of respect is invisible. It has to be invisible. If you can feel it, if the theme and spine of a story is so visible in your movie, that means you clearly are, as they say, overwriting your film. You are hitting the nail on the head. You are not being a good writer. Okay? You have to lay in your themes in an artistic, writerly way without it being so obvious. Okay? The audience should never be conscious or aware of it. They will feel it in an abstract way, but what is important is that every aspect of the film be coherent because it is motivated by that theme. I made a film one time where I had the privilege and the luxury to make a narrative film where I could shoot in sequence. Shooting in sequence is impossible with very little money, but someone gave me enough money to shoot in sequence. The way, and this is all kind of inside information, but when you make a film, you write a screenplay, you create a blueprint for a movie, the way your money comes, the way you schedule your film is based on how much time and money you have, how much actual time you can move a location to another location. You can never, 95% of the time, ever make a film in sequence. Because the sequence of a movie, it's hard. You can't say the film begins on page 1, the film ends on page 120. You shoot every single scene in the sequence in which the film takes place. It's impossible because of the logistical problem of moving your people from set to set, the availability of actors, availability of locations, and the availability of money. I had an opportunity one time to do that, though, and it was incredible. And I was able to write and change things as I went along, like I was going down a river. And it was wonderful. Impossible to do, but I did it. The film was okay. But I realized that I needed the constraints of a screenplay. I needed the time, the elements in which I had the precisely defined information of a screenplay to tell me what I need to do, how I need to do it, how my actors are going to show up, when they're going to show up, and what they need to do, and how we're going to make the film. I think when you are making a film, you have a clear idea and you express it through the film. When you are working completely with the privilege that I had, in which you are working with the money I had in sequence, the film can come out pretty good. But sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, I'm not sure what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'm going to do the next day. I'm going to change it up. When you have a screenplay, you have to do exactly what it's supposed to be. And it really helps you when you're thinking because you're planning things out correctly. And that's why it's important when you are constructing your screenplays that you are planning for the time you have. When I was thinking about making my first film, a film called Love and Action in Chicago, right here, my very first film, I wanted to make this film because I wanted to go back to where I grew up, Chicago. I wanted to make this film with actors who I'd never worked with before. I wanted to make this film kind of a spy movie that was funny but also dark. I wanted to make this film because I wanted to work for a studio and see how it would work out. So I wrote a screenplay, I directed the film, I had I had some control, not a lot of control. But at the end of the day, I was making this film because I thought so much about why do I want to tell these stories. And the more I was directing the film, the more I was rewriting the film, the more I was doing it, I realized, oh my God, this movie is really not the kind of movie I really want to make. It was a little bit too jokey. It was a little bit too comedic. I wrote the movie quickly. I wrote it in a month and a half. I sold it. And I got the money and I started pre-producing it. But I got on the set and I kept thinking, it's not exactly the movie I want to make. I had a different idea when I got there. And it was so weird because I had a precise screenplay. It was all there. My actors all loved it. But I really wasn't as jazzed about the movie when I was actually making the movie. So I had to go into the editing process trying to find my movie all over again. And this was, to me, as a filmmaker, a learning experience, and an experience in which I knew the next time I do it, I would be completely excited about my experience. And that came down from the writing. The writing of the screenplay was very good on the page. There was a certain style that I gave to it. People liked it. They paid me money for the screenplay. I actually made the movie. But in the execution of it, I wasn't sure if I could create the same style on the screen that I had on the page. And it made it difficult when I was cutting the film, of trying to find the film. Why I tell you this story is because as writers, when you start writing your movie, it's important to know, what am I really trying to say? Am I trying to make the audience laugh? Am I trying to make the audience walk out and feel like they want them to cry? Do I want the audience to feel something when they leave? Because, as they say, if you don't make the audience feel something when you leave the theater, you've made a mistake. Laugh or cry, the audience should feel something when they leave the theater. And when I left the theater, I kept thinking, that was okay, but I didn't feel what I wanted to feel when I was writing it. Does the title have anything to do with the theme? Yes, it does. And let's look at some of these films I have here in front of me. The titles of some of these films. This film is called The Visitor. And the theme is almost in the title. The story, I'll tell you the story very briefly about an American guy. You see him on the bottom of the box. He's on a conga drum here, a tumbe. He lives a very quiet life in Connecticut or wherever, New York City. And an African woman and an Arab man who are married find a way to move into his home because they're on the run. They have an immigration problem in America. And they wind up, through a series of events, in his house, his second apartment in New York City. He never goes there. He never goes there. He hasn't been there in months. He goes there finally one day, and they're there. They've been there 2 months, and he has immigration problems. They're visiting, he's visiting. The visitor. They're visiting each other emotionally. They are trying to find a way not to visit anymore, but to become, at home with each other. The theme of the story is in the title. A title could be abstract, very abstract. And an abstract title, many times, it makes you inquire, what's this movie about? It brings you to the movie. Sometimes the theme and the title do match up, but I think what you're saying is that is the unseen spine, the unseen theme revealed in the title sometime. What if a little girl found out that she won in her own state and could win the national championship? What if she found out? He decided to write a movie from the spine of that idea, the spine of a what if. And he created all these characters, the kid's family. The what if is the walk-in, is the buy-in. What if? It's like we say, what if the sky fell and you're standing under it? What if I had an idea, a little girl who wants to enter into a contest and she wanted to win? And she was a kind of a plain-looking girl like her. She wasn't like a little beauty. She's a little plain girl, but she thinks she can win. What if she can go? And he wrote this screenplay in 6 days. 6 days, first draft, same kind of, facilities you have with Word or Final Cut, Final Draft, any kind of Word program. Wrote the screenplay in 6 days, and he sold it to a studio. Actually, he sold it to a producer for $250,000. Because on the page, it was as funny as it is here. On the page, it just read like a story. On the page, you saw the characters. You saw the actual circumstances of each character early on. And you could keep turning the pages and keep seeing the characters. Keep seeing them come alive. That's why it sold. That's why they made the movie very quickly. And the movie got a lot of awards, and the writer is now doing very well. There was a drive in him to write a screenplay because he had this idea. Like one of you may have an idea. So what I'm trying to say is that it can be done by anybody. He was not part of the system. He wasn't in the system. They say that no undiscovered talent exists. They say that if you have a story, a script, a page, screenplays, someone will read it and say, this is amazing, and they will give it to someone else, and they'll give it to someone else, and they'll make the movie. It's true. And he's a good example of this. So this is not somebody who was inside the system who made a movie. Okay? He clearly has a voice, had an idea, there was execution, they found the right director. The director, incidentally, was a team, a husband and wife team who directed the film. They had never directed a film before in their life. So it was the first time for everyone, and the results were spectacular. He wrote it as an ensemble piece, like a play. They all were part of the engine of the story. It started with an idea, Little Miss Sunshine, the idea and the title, as you mentioned. He took the title, knew a theme, what if, wrote out, created this story, this family. They all had their circumstances. The story just took off. There's also a thing that he did also, which is another technique that screenwriters can do, is they have a clock, a ticking clock. I've got to be someplace in 2 days. I've got to climb up this tree or I will die. I have to be around here, around there in 1 day. When the clock is on the movie, you know it's going to end when you get there. The audience knows I've got to get there. I'm going to see that. There's something that clearly is determined in the end. How they get there is the magic of your writing. How they get there is how funny this will be or how tragic it will be. How they get there. But the idea of the ticking clock is a great technique for a writer. The clock is ticking. You got to be there by Saturday. What are we going to do? How fast can we get there? What do we do to get there? How do we put all the troops together? Who is going to help us? Who's going to say yes? Who's going to say no? He did it all here. What do we see more than anything else? The director did something that I thought was amazing. The director put them at a family table, the dinner table. The director put the camera right here and you're looking directly at them throughout the whole story, the first part of the movie. The director directed the film to the theme. Around the table is where the family sits. The family lives in the house. The family goes home to have dinner. The family complains about everything. The family hates each other. The family loves each other. The family, that shot at the end where the father is talking to the daughter, and you see the family all behind them. The director knew the theme so much that he put them all in the same frame. That's a picture. That's the writing and the directing working directly to the theme. The spine was so clear. Family. The movie's about family. Everyone starts somewhere. Sam Grossman is this mythical figure that the father is trying to get on the phone, right? He's going to give him a deal, give him money. Sam Grossman, we don't know who he is, but somehow he is his God. Sam Grossman is going to save him and the family, and he's going to be the man, because he has 9 steps, right? Sam Grossman, I won't tell you what happens, but that's his starting point. How it ends, we're going to follow that. This kid says, I hate everybody. How it is, we're going to follow that. The kid says, I want to be the beauty pageant winner. How it ends, we're going to follow that. Every single character has an arc. When you write a screenplay, when you create characters, they can't be flat. They can't start one place and end the same place. If we care about a story, if we care about characters, if we care about the story, so when we walk out the theater, oh my God, I felt something about this film. Every character must have some place to go. I feel. Now, there are many people who feel if a character starts here and they end here in the same place, that's okay as long as the story changes. I feel characters are important. I write from character. Another script that I gave you guys is a screenplay called Pulp Fiction. You probably saw this movie. It's been around a while. Roger Avary and Quentin Tarantino wrote this screenplay. It's a disjointed story in terms of how it's told, in terms of the narrative. It is not told in linear fashion. It starts at the end, and the end is the beginning. You'll read the screenplay and you're wondering, where am I starting? Where am I at? But everything wraps up the right way and you'll see it. No Country for Old Men. Do you remember that film? Won Best Picture 3 years ago at the Oscars. The Coen brothers wrote this screenplay based on Cormac McCarthy's book, a very dark story. It's a very interesting screenplay. There's a voiceover in the movie, another technique to think about. A voiceover from the point of view of one of the characters in the story. When you're thinking about writing a movie, you're thinking about the voiceover. You're thinking about the point of view. We talked about the point of view, right? Is it from the first person, a person in the film? Is it from the third person, omnipotent, from looking down? When you read this story, it's based on a novel. The novel dictates how the story is told. Okay? This is a violent movie. An unforgivingly violent movie about people that are really unlikable, with a killer who absolutely has no quarter. It's an incredibly affecting screenplay in terms of deep, deep storytelling. I think all these screenplays have deep storytelling at its core. All the characters in these screenplays have arcs. There are subplots you can follow. There are characters that come in, go out. But the key thing that I think everyone needs to know when they're writing their movie, particularly if you're writing and living here as filmmakers, you want to find a way to deepen your stories than just what you already see. You want to find a way to have, as we were talking about before, a way to raise the stakes in your storytelling. Raising the stakes is so important raising the stakes midway through a screenplay makes the audience absolutely jump. I'm not saying it's a twist in the story. I'm saying it's raising the stakes. I've got to get to someplace at a certain time. All of a sudden, the story shifts, and now it's about something else. It's life or death. It's life or death. The stakes are raised. Something happens in your storytelling where you go up a notch. When you go up a notch, you deepen the story. It's proportionate. You go up, you deepen. Okay? Even in A Little Bit of Sunshine, as absolutely lighthearted as this film sounded and looked, the stakes are raised halfway through the movie, and you will feel it.